Lisa Hoffman with Happening in Richfield, and this is the first recap of the Mayr and Council Meeting. It is for the March 23rd, 2026 meeting. I am going to start with the fact that there was a procedural change. In the past, what would happen is they would open the meeting to Pledge of Allegiance, then there would be public comments for anything that was on the consent agenda. People could get up, they could speak about that. Then we would go into the rest of the meeting. At the end, there would be public comments, and then finally the officials would finish up and close the meeting. That did change. It was written that the public comments would be in front. They were moved to the back. In the past, both the public comments in front and at the end were each 5 minutes. They were moved to the end and were only 3 minutes. So now I'm going to get into what actually happened. We had 2 proclamations. The first proclamation were to the Girl Scouts. Girl Scouts are now back in Richfield, and they presented certificates to all of the girls. That was resolution 118-2026. Joanna then gave Sarah Kim and Linda Silvestri flowers for Women's Day. Then there was a proclamation number 119-2026, and that was to the Armenian Relief Society. And basically they're like the Armenian Red Cross, and they operate out of the Richfield Armenian Church. Then at that point, resolution 120-2026 was revenues and appropriations, and it said see attached, and it was the preliminary budget. I am not going to go into every single budget item, and we'll put it up online for people to look at. This is a preliminary budget. The big things to take away, the summary of appropriations was $28.4 million. We did increase in full-time jobs from 73 full-time jobs to 78. The debt services did decrease by $10,000. When it came to the pool, the total revenue, So when it came to the pool, it was missing the surplus, the capital improvements, and the debt. But the pool amount was $574,818, which was an increase of $140,000. And when it came to general debts and bonds, we are at $27.8 million. Everybody voted on it. The only person who voted no was Councilman Rim. Then there was ordinance number 2531, basically said in the calendar year of 2026, they needed to exceed the municipal budget that was already set, and they had to vote on it because you get a 2% increase. This went up to 3.5%. That additional 1.5% increase totaled $291,387, bringing the entire year at 3.5% to $678,903. Everybody voted yes, with the exception of Councilman Roof, who abstains. Then we went on to ordinance number 2532, and basically it was a bond that was passed unanimously, and what it allowed for was the schedule of improvements. Breaking it down, it was additional replacement equipment for the fire department, which was $86,000. Partial funding for the construction of a recreation pavilion, which was $49,000, and an agreement appropriation of $135,000, totaling $128,500. Then we went to the consent agenda, and the consent agenda typically is not broken out, so they don't really discuss these things. It's kind of just all passed at once. But people did ask me to review the consent agenda. So ordinance number 2533, which basically was an ordinance amending the parking. It reads originally that residents would be charged $10 for each permit. The permit would be good for 2 years. And then the visitor parking could be bought in bundles. And it talks about that pricing. Councilman Jafar amended it so it's actually $10 per vehicle for every 2 years. So if you have 2 cars, that would be $20, and it passed unanimously. Next, okay, so these were on the consent agendas, were resolution number 121. and that was bids for the open space pavilion. Basically what happened is they put them out to bid, and all the bids that came back, they got 7 bids, and all of them were overpriced, so they're sending it out for bid again. Resolution 122-2026, basically the mayor was criminally charged on April 28th, and the charges were dismissed and expunged on May 2nd, 2026. According to Ordinance Chapter 23-5, the town has to pay for the criminal defense lawyer. That was in the amount of $3,633.30, and that was in regards to summons S-202541. The next thing that was in the consent agenda, and the consent agenda was passed unanimously, was resolution number 123-2006. It was for the borough engineer, and basically, you know, they put out a RFQ, and it speaks about what the engineer covers, and then it goes into showing his contracts, and what he can charge for is broken down. I have it here, you know, by number. I'm not going to read all the numbers. All of this is in the agenda, and you can look at it online. Another item that was in the consent agenda was resolution 124-2026, where Wilfredo Ortiz was appointed as the tenant advocate for 2026. Then we have resolution 125. This basically talks about all of the deductions. So from the general fund, it was $500, Mayr and Council OE, $677.07, finance OE, $3,500, assessment of taxes, $5,000, legal services, $2,000, insurance, others, $4,000, community services, $1,000, fire department operating expenses, $3,500, DPW, salary and wages, $1,000, recycling, $2,000, maintenance, borough vehicle, maintenance of borough fire vehicles, $3,500, maintenance of vehicles for the sanitation department, $1,200, board of health, operating expenses, $1,250, utility telephone, $1,500, utility water, $4,500, sanitation landfill, $2,000, municipal court, $1,500, rent leveling was $676.80, sanitation, 27 cents, recreation was $11,000, and then utilities for the lights was $26,374.18. And Linda Silvestri did read all of those out loud. You can see it in the recording. Then we went on to the bills list, and basically the bills were $2,668,000. So 2.6 million, little 2.66 million. And basically, and it talks about the capital trust, community grants, everything's in there. What happened was we get a list. For those of you who may not see it, they actually give a list of all the bills and all the expenses that have to be paid, and it's kind of like a spreadsheet. I'll show you to, you know, see that's what it looks like. So here's where things got spicy. So Councilman Rue basically questioned check number 45202, or purchase order, whatever it is. And he said the vendor didn't follow the proper procedure and he didn't feel that they should be paid. And then it was questioned as to what it was. It was under the Anti-Bully Commission. And basically what happens is they did call Frank Foligno up and ask him, he is the CFO. Anything over $500 needs to have a purchase order, and it's supposed to be done prior to making the acquisition. So this was purchased, and it didn't come through the Mayr and Council first. It did come through a trust. Frank Foligno said that, especially with the trust, the POs over 500s don't always follow the rule, but this is what happened. Then it kind of went back and forth as to this is something that happened in the past, it shouldn't happen. You can watch the video on that. At the end of the day, Councilman Rue made a motion to pull it and not pay it. Nobody seconded that motion. Therefore, it went forward. Everybody voted yes on it with the exception of Councilman Rue, who voted no. Then we got to the council people's some things went back and forth. The big thing to really kind of take as the takeaway was the fact that Councilman Rue did resign from the Finance Committee. I'll let you watch the video on that. There were some public comments, and to just kind of go over the public comments quickly. You know, people kind of questioned why the comments were moved. It is unclear how comments are going to be in the future. They did talk about the pool, about the fact that there is a deficit there. It had been going down prior to COVID. After COVID, the deficit's actually going up. Some things that they could do for that. And they talked about different town events. The DP, so basically Warren talked about some things they used to do in the past to avoid, you know, having a PO that would be paid. And I think that's the big stuff. You can always watch the video in its entirety. It was live streamed and is also uploaded to our YouTube page. Thank you.